I caught my wife and my best friend in bed together. That's the kind of sentence that feels like it belongs in someone else's story. Like something you scroll past on Reddit and think, man, that's rough. You don't expect it to be your life. Until it is. My name's Ben. I'm 45, live in Bloomington, Indiana, and up until recently, I thought I had a pretty stable life. Nothing flashy. Nothing special. Just steady. A long-time job in logistics, a mortgage I could manage, and a marriage that, to me, still felt worth fighting for, even on the hard days. Rachel and I have been married for 17 years. We met when we were both 28 at one of those awkward networking mixers where no one actually wants to be there. I remember she was wearing this green blouse and telling a story that had 3 people cracking up while she sipped wine like it was nothing. She had this quiet kind of confidence, not loud, not showy, just solid. She looked at you like she already knew who you were, and somehow that made you want to live up to it. And for years I tried to. We built a life, a house, shared friends, inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. We fought, sure, sometimes loud, sometimes stupid, but we also knew how to patch things up, or at least I thought we did. Looking back now, I wonder how long I'd been lying to myself. Then there's Eric. Eric and I met fresh out of college. First real jobs. Same cubicle row. We bonded over bad coffee and terrible management. Over the years, he became more than a friend. He was family. The kind of guy who'd show up to help you move with zero notice. The kind of guy you'd trust with your spare keys, your dog, and, apparently, your wife. 10 years ago, Eric's wife passed away in a car crash. It was brutal. They had a daughter, Ava. She was 10 at the time. Eric completely fell apart that first year. Couldn't function. Couldn't cook. Couldn't parent. Rachel stepped in a lot. She and Ava got close. Almost mother-daughter close. Ava would call me Uncle Ben, come by for sleepovers, movie nights, Sunday dinners. I thought we were doing something good. Something meaningful. Now, I can't stop wondering if I handed my wife to him on a silver platter. The day it all came crashing down started like any other forgettable weekday. It was a Wednesday. I only remember that because I had a meeting scheduled that morning and skipped it because of a sudden stomach cramp. The pain was sharp and came out of nowhere. My boss told me to head home and rest up, so I did. Driving back, I was annoyed. I hate leaving work unfinished. I figured I'd pop a couple of painkillers, lie down, and sleep it off. But when I pulled into the driveway, I saw Eric's truck parked right in front of our house. And for some reason, that's when the first little alarm went off in my head. Now, let me be clear, Eric showing up wasn't unusual. He came by often. We'd watch sports, have a drink, sometimes grill together. He had a key. He was welcome. But something about that day felt off. It's hard to explain. Just this tight, twisting feeling in my gut. The same one you get when your phone rings in the middle of the night and you know, before even picking it up, that it's bad news. The front door was locked. That was weird. Rachel never locked it during the day, especially not if Eric was over. We lived in a quiet neighborhood. No reason to be paranoid. I used my key, walked inside, and immediately I knew. You ever step into a house and feel like it's holding its breath? No music, no dishes clinking, just this unnatural silence. The kind that presses on your chest. Then I heard it. Not loud. Faint, muffled. A low gasp. A voice. Another sound I didn't want to identify. It all blurred after that. I remember grabbing the wooden bat from the hall closet. It's been there for years, just in case, you know? I didn't think. I didn't plan. My feet just moved. Up the stairs. Down the hallway. Toward the bedroom I thought I knew inside and out. I pushed the door open, and there they were. Rachel, my wife, on the bed, with Eric, my best friend. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't confusing. It wasn't one of those movie moments where you think, oh, maybe there's another explanation. No, it was clear, and it broke something inside me I didn't even know could break. They both froze. Rachel scrambled, tried to cover herself, eyes wide with guilt. Eric looked like a deer staring into high beams. I didn't say a word. I just stepped in and slammed the bat down onto the hardwood floor. Not at them, just close enough to send a message. The crack echoed through the walls. Rachel was the first to speak. Ben, wait, this isn't. Please, let us explain. But I didn't want an explanation. I dropped the bat, and I punched Eric. Once. Then again. Harder. By the third hit, Rachel was shouting, pulling at my arms, and Eric was backing toward the dresser like I was about to flatten him. Maybe I would have. But something stopped me. I stepped back, walked out without another word, and grabbed a landscaping rock from the front yard. Then I turned and hurled it through the windshield of Eric's truck. The glass shattered. The alarm screamed into the quiet street. I didn't care. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed distance. Air. Time. But what I really needed, what I didn't even realize until that moment, was something stronger. Something to drown out the taste of betrayal. And that's how I ended up at Murphy's. An old bar I hadn't been to in nearly a decade. Dim lights. Crack booths. A jukebox that still played 90s rock like it was the height of culture. I walked in still shaking. Sat down at the counter like my legs weren't really part of me. Whiskey, I muttered. Doug, the bartender, poured without asking. He must have seen the look in my eyes. Rough day, he asked after I tossed back the first one. I nodded. Wife, I said, and my best friend. Caught them together. Doug let out a whistle and slid another shot toward me. Damn, he said. You want to talk about it? I stared into the amber glass for a long time before answering. No, I said, but I think I will anyway. A few months passed. The trees turned green again. My neighborhood started to smell like cut grass and barbecues on weekends. And for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't just existing, I was actually living again. The divorce was finalized. Phil handled everything like the pro he was. Rachel tried to stall, maybe hoping I'd change my mind, maybe out of pride. But it didn't matter. When the judge signed those papers, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel victory. I felt peace. Pure, unshakable peace. We sold a house not long after. Packed up 17 years of memories and pain into boxes and split the profits. She moved across town. I didn't ask where. Didn't care. I found a small place on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy, but it had a porch and just enough room for quiet. It was mine. All mine. And that meant something. I changed a lot during that time. Started cooking for myself again. Rejoined the gym. Signed up for a woodworking class, of all things. Turns out, I liked working with my hands. I liked building something and seeing it take shape. Something real, something solid. Therapy helped too. Yeah, I went. No shame in saying that. My therapist, Sandra, was blunt in the best way. She didn't try to sugarcoat things. She told me that healing wasn't about waiting for time to do its job. It was about effort, choice, rebuilding your story brick by brick. She was right. As for Rachel, I heard bits and pieces. That her job took a hit after the messed up presentation. That word got around, and she had to start over. She still saw Eric for a while, apparently. But that didn't last. Ava told me one day, almost casually, that they'd stopped speaking altogether. Guess they finally saw each other clearly, she said, shrugging. I didn't ask for details. Some stories don't need sequels. Ava moved to Chicago a few weeks after that. New job, new apartment, fresh start. We met for lunch before she left. Nothing heavy, just laughs, memories, some shared silence. When we hugged goodbye, she whispered, "Thank you for always being there, even when things got ugly." I didn't know what to say, so I just said the truth. "You're going to do great. I'm proud of you." She smiled, right back at you. And with that, she was gone. Now my days are quieter, but not empty. I wake up early, make coffee, sit on my porch, and listen to the world wake up. I take walks without a destination. I've made peace with the past, not because I forgot, but because I learned to carry it without letting it drag me down. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever date again. Maybe, but the truth is I'm not in a rush. I like this version of me, the one who learned how to stand on his own, the one who understands that trust isn't something you give away. It's something you earn back, first from yourself. I'm not angry anymore. Not at Rachel. Not at Eric. Not even at myself. I'm just free. And that, after everything, feels like the biggest win of all. If you're going through something like this, if your world's crumbling and you're standing in the ashes wondering how it all fell apart, I'll tell you this. You'll be okay. Not tomorrow. Not next week. But one day, you'll wake up and the air will feel lighter. The silence won't hurt. The memories won't sting. And you'll realize that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means reclaiming your future, one quiet morning at a time. Doug didn't say much after that. He just nodded and kept the drinks coming, slow enough not to knock me out, but steady enough to numb the edges. I think that's what I needed most. Not to forget, but to soften the impact. At some point, I started talking. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like I was narrating someone else's story. Like I needed to hear it outside of my own head to believe it had really happened. I told Doug everything, or at least the highlights. 17 years with Rachel. Everything we built. The good times. The slow erosion I didn't want to admit was happening. Then the moment I opened that bedroom door and saw Eric, the one person I trusted more than most, betraying me with a woman I thought I'd grow old with. Doug didn't interrupt. He just stood there polishing glasses, nodding now and then. It was like talking to a tree, sturdy, quiet, solid, and strangely comforting. At one point, I asked him, "What would you do if it was you?" He paused for a second, then said, "You already did the part most people wish they had the guts to do. You left." I sat with that. Because, yeah, I could have stayed. Could have screamed, broken more than a windshield, demanded answers I already knew. But instead, I walked away. Not because I'm noble, just because I didn't have anything left in me to stay. I don't know how long I sat there. Time got weird, elastic. The lights blurred. The bar noise faded into a dull hum. I remember bits. Someone playing Simple Man on the jukebox, a guy 2 stools down, crying quietly into a glass of gin, Doug tossing me a bottle of water and saying, "You're going to want this in the morning." At some point, I told him I'd drive home, and he just shook his head. "No way. You're staying put. Cab's on me." Before I could argue, he reached over the counter and plucked my keys from my coat pocket like it was nothing. "You can thank me later," he said. I didn't even have the energy to argue. I just slumped back onto the stool and let the weight of the day press me into the floor. 15 minutes later, a cab pulled up outside. The driver didn't ask questions either. He must have been used to picking up shattered people from this bar. The ride home was a blur. Bloomington's lights passed by like streaks on a canvas. The city looked the same. Traffic lights, quiet sidewalks, families eating dinner behind glowing windows. But I felt completely disconnected from it all. Like I was watching life happen from the other side of a window I couldn't open. When we pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a minute before getting out. My house loomed in front of me, dark and quiet. The same place I used to feel safe in. Now it felt like enemy territory. I stumbled to the front door, unlocked it, stepped inside, and just stood there. The silence hit me like a second wave. No lights, no sounds, no Rachel. For a split second, I wondered where she was. With him? Somewhere else? Did I even care? I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter and made my way to the living room. Still wearing the same clothes from the day before, I collapsed onto the couch like a pile of bricks and passed out without even pulling a blanket over myself. The next thing I remember is sunlight slicing through the blinds like it was angry at me. My head felt like it had been jackhammered. My mouth was dry, and every part of my body ached. But that wasn't the worst part. The real pain was deeper. That hollow feeling in my chest, like something important had been scooped out and replaced with static. It didn't even feel like sadness. It was something colder. I sat there for a long time. No TV, no music, just me, the ticking clock, and the soft creak of the house shifting in the early morning light. Then I remembered something. A name. Phil Novak, a divorce attorney I met at a corporate seminar years ago. We only chatted for a bit, but I remembered 2 things about him. He was sharp, and he didn't mess around. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old contacts, and finally found his number. "Phil, it's Ben Callahan. We met back at that Indianapolis logistics panel a few years back." He remembered me. "I need help," I said, "with a divorce. A bad one." He didn't hesitate. "All right, let's talk." I told him the essentials. How long we were married. No prenup. The betrayal. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just laid it out like a blueprint of a house that had already burned down. Phil was calm, professional but not cold. "Email me everything you've got. Finances, tax returns, joint accounts. We'll go from there." I hung up and felt, not good but grounded, like I'd just taken the first step in reclaiming something. Not revenge, not even justice, just agency. I got up, wandered into the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. Rachel's work laptop. still open on the dining room table, screen glowing faintly. She'd been talking about this pitch for weeks, some big deal with foreign investors. Said it was the most important presentation of her career. And that's when the thought hit me. I wasn't going to scream at her. I wasn't going to chase her down, but I could still make a dent. I walked over, sat down, and started scrolling through her files. Her presentation looked perfect. Clean formatting, strong visuals, polished talking points. She'd clearly worked hard on it. So I made a few edits. Nothing too obvious. I wasn't trying to ruin her life, just shake her foundation a little. I tweaked numbers, added a few misplaced commas, reworded some bullet points into awkward, rambling messes. It was petty, yeah, but it was also the only thing that felt remotely satisfying in that moment. When I finished, I sat back in the chair and stared at the screen. Not smiling, not gloating, just breathing. If she was going to shatter something I built over 17 years, then I wasn't going to just walk away without at least throwing one stone. She walked in like nothing happened, like she hadn't detonated a bomb and left me buried in the rubble. It was just after 7 p.m. I was sitting on the couch, laptop closed, mind still humming from everything I'd done that morning. The edits to her presentation, the call to the lawyer, the quiet kind of rage that doesn't boil, it simmers. And then the front door opened. Her heels clicked across the hardwood, like they always had. Her perfume drifted in behind her like a ghost. She dropped her keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, the same way she'd done for years. Same rhythm, same sound, but this time it landed different. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared straight ahead. "Ben," she said casually, like we were about to talk dinner plans. "We need to talk." I finally turned my head, met her eyes, and all I could think was, "Who are you?" "We're past talking, Rachel," I said, voice low but steady. "I've already called a lawyer." She blinked, the first crack in a mask. "You what?" "I've started the process. You'll get the papers soon." For a second, I saw something in her eyes, not guilt, not even regret, just calculation, like she was already figuring out her next move. "You're being dramatic," she said finally, arms crossed. "This doesn't have to get ugly." I almost laughed. The sheer audacity. "You slept with Eric. In our home. In our bed. And you think I'm the one being dramatic?" She didn't answer. Just stood there, jaw tight. "I don't know who you are anymore," I said. "And honestly, I don't care to find out." Her expression hardened. "You think you're the victim in all this?" "You still the hair." "I know I am." We stood in silence for a beat too long. Then she shook her head like I was the one who disappointed her. "This is going to get messy," she said. "Then we're something you don't mind getting dirty." I got up, walked past her, and out to the front porch. I needed air. The walls felt like they were closing in. I stood there for a while, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. Neighbors walking dogs. Kids riding bikes. Normal life continuing on, while mine had been flipped inside out. She stayed inside. I could hear her moving around, opening drawers, pacing, but I didn't go back in. I couldn't. Eventually, the living room light clicked off. I guess she went to bed. I crashed on the couch again. No blanket, no pillow. Just the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of a car door somewhere down the street. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up. It was after midnight. The house was still, except for the buzz of my phone on the coffee table. I rubbed my eyes, grabbed it. Ava, Eric's daughter. At first, I thought maybe she'd dial me by accident. But then I saw the message. "Can you come get me? I don't want to call my dad." I blinked. There was a location pin. Some apartment complex across town. No explanation. No follow-up. Just a request. I hesitated for a second, but then I grabbed my keys and slipped on a jacket. Rachel was still asleep, or pretending to be. Either way, I didn't say a word as I walked out the door. The drive was quiet. Empty streets. Low radio hum. My thoughts bouncing around like loose change in a dryer. What could have happened? Why me? Did she know? Did she want to know? When I pulled up to the address, she was leaning against the building, arms wrapped around herself, hoodie pulled tight, head down. She looked smaller than I remembered. I parked, got out, and walked over. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. Not from crying, from trying not to. "Yeah," she whispered. "Just needed someone who wouldn't ask questions." I nodded. "Get in." We didn't talk much on the drive back. She told me her boyfriend cheated on her, that she found out at the party, lost it, stormed out, didn't know who to call. I didn't want to call him, she said, meaning Eric. I couldn't. I understood. When the people who are supposed to love you the most become the reason you hurt, you stop looking to them for comfort. We pulled into my driveway. I figured she'd asked to be dropped off at her mom's place or a friend's, but instead she said, "Can I just sit here for a bit?" So we did. Just two people in a parked car, both betrayed by people they trusted most, both trying to make sense of the wreckage. She finally broke the silence. "You gonna be okay?" I gave a half shrug. "Define okay." She smiled faintly. "Fair." Then she looked at me. "I am sorry for what my dad did to you." Those words hit harder than I expected. "Thanks," I said quietly. "That means more than you know." We sat for a while longer. No pressure to speak. No awkwardness. Eventually, she said she'd Uber home. I offered to wait with her till it arrived. She didn't say no. 10 minutes later, a car pulled up and she got out. "Take care, Uncle Ben," she said before closing the door. It was the first time someone had called me that since the world flipped upside down. And for the first time in a while, it didn't feel like a wound. It felt like something real, like something I could still hold on to. Rachel's world started falling apart faster than I expected. It began with the sound of her voice. Not the words, just the volume. Angry. Shaken. I was in the kitchen, nursing a cup of black coffee, when I heard the front door swing open. Then came the unmistakable crash of something hard hitting the floor. Her work bag, maybe, or her pride. I didn't say anything. Just waited. A moment later, she stormed into the kitchen, face flushed, eyes blazing. "What did you do?" I set my mug down slowly. "Good evening to you too. Don't play stupid, Ben." "I'm not playing." She slapped her laptop onto the counter. My presentation glitched. Half the numbers were wrong. The charts, they didn't make sense. My manager pulled me aside in the middle of the meeting and asked if I was having a breakdown. I stayed silent. "Calm. They benched me," she said, her voice cracking. "They pulled the account from me." Still, I didn't say a word. Her hands were trembling. For a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. "Why would you sabotage me?" I finally looked up. "Why would you sleep with my best friend?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. There it was. That rare moment where the truth actually did shut someone up. "You don't get to play the victim, Rachel. Not this time." She shook her head. "You're spiteful." "No," I said, standing. "I am tired. Tired of being the fool in someone else's story." I left her there, frozen in place. Later that night, she didn't come home. Again, I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. The house got quieter after that. Not peaceful, just quiet in the way things are after an earthquake, when you're still waiting for the next aftershock. I started packing up things, not hers, just mine. Old photos, books, memories I want to keep. I didn't know when we'd officially split, but I knew I wouldn't be staying. And then, a few days later, Ava texted me again. "Hey, just checking in. You okay?" I stared at the message for a while before replying. "Getting there. You," she wrote back almost instantly. "Better than that night. Thanks again, by the way." I didn't expect to hear from her again so soon. But honestly, it felt normal. Safe. We kept it light. No deep dives. No reacing trauma. Just two people keeping each other grounded. A few days later, she asked if I'd meet her for coffee. At first, I hesitated. It felt like crossing into unfamiliar territory. But I said yes. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town. The kind with chipped mugs, creaky floors, and a jukebox that never worked right. She waved when she saw me, already holding 2 coffees. "Thought you might like it black," she said. "Still do," I smiled. We sat near the window, sunlight spilling in over cracked wooden tables. For a while we just talked. About work. Music. The kind of stuff people talk about when they're trying not to talk about the real stuff. Eventually, though, the conversation dipped a little deeper. "You know," she said, staring into her cup, "I used to think my dad was a hero." I nodded, letting her go on. "After Mom died, he stepped up. Or, I thought he did. But looking back, I think I just wanted to believe he was holding it together. For me. Maybe he was. In his own broken way." I said. She looked up at me. "What about Rachel? Did you ever suspect anything?" I shook my head slowly. "Not a thing. That's what makes it worse." She exhaled. "I hate what they did to you. To both of us. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said same. We sat in silence after that. Not uncomfortable, just understanding. Eventually, she smiled. You look better than you did that night. Thanks, I said. You too. We left it at that. I paid for the coffee. She protested. I insisted. And when we said goodbye, there was no lingering look. No tensión. Just a simple wave and a quiet, take care. It was the first moment in weeks that didn't feel heavy. That night, Rachel came home drunk, stumbled through the door, heels in one hand, wine bottle in the other. I was on the couch again, watching a movie I wasn't really following. She saw me and let out a humorless laugh. Oh look, my husband, the moral compass. I didn't respond. You think this makes you better than me? She slurred. Sabotaging me? Calling lawyers. I turned the volume up. Real mature, she said, setting the bottle down, so hard it nearly tipped over. You want to be a victim, Ben? Fine, but don't pretend you're clean. She stared at me for a long beat. Then, quieter, you were supposed to love me. I did, I said, more than you ever deserved. And I walked upstairs, left her in the silence she created. Because sometimes the only way to win is to let the other person sit with what they've done. Alone. Over the next week, things shifted. Not dramatically, not overnight, but bit by bit, I felt something inside me start to settle. Rachel barely came home anymore. When she did, we didn't speak. She'd grab her stuff, slam a few doors, pretend like I wasn't there. And honestly, I preferred it that way. Meanwhile, I focused on sorting out the legal side of things. Phil, my lawyer, was a machine. Precise, no nonsense. He sent me documents to sign, asked for old bank statements, walked me through every step. 17 years of marriage unraveled through PDFs and signatures. Funny how something so massive can feel so clinical. But every email I sent, every form I signed, felt like peeling off another layer of her. And it felt good. One afternoon, I found myself cleaning out the garage. Not because I had to, but because I needed something, anything, to keep my hands busy. Boxes of old memories. Tools I hadn't touched in years. Dusty holiday decorations. It was like walking through a museum of a life that didn't belong to me anymore. That's when I saw it. A photo. It was from a barbecue maybe 8 years ago. Me, Eric, Rachel, and Ava, all smiling, arms around each other. She looked so young in the picture. Probably 12. Her braces had just come off. I remembered her showing them off, grinning like she'd won the lottery. I stared at that photo for a long time. Everything in it was gone now. At least, the version I thought was real. I almost threw it out. Almost. But I couldn't. Not because of Rachel. Not even because of Eric. Because of Ava. Later that night, I got another text from her. Hey, do you have time to talk? I wrote back. Sure. Call. Whenever. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Hey, she said softly. Is this okay? Of course. You all right? There was a pause. Yeah, just weird night. Been thinking a lot. We talked for over an hour. Nothing dramatic. Just shared thoughts. Memories. She told me how things at her job were picking up, how she was planning to move out of her dad's house permanently. She was 21 now, more than ready. I should have done it sooner, she said. But I think I was afraid. Afraid of what? I asked. Afraid of admitting how broken things were. With him. With the whole setup. She didn't have to say what she meant. I understood. There was silence for a few seconds. You know, she said finally, I always thought you were different from the others. Even when I was a kid. You listened. That hit harder than I expected. I tried, I said quietly. Well, it mattered, she replied. Before we hung up, she said, thank you. For that night. And for not judging me. You don't have to thank me. We all need someone, sometimes. She laughed softly. Yeah, even the grown-ups. That night, I lay in bed and thought about everything. About who I used to be. About who I might still become. I wasn't fixed. Not even close. But I wasn't broken anymore, either. I was somewhere in between. Somewhere real. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. A few days later, Rachel tried to pick a fight. She came by to grab some things, and saw that I'd moved a few of her boxes to the hallway. This is how it is now, she snapped. You just decide where my stuff goes. I didn't even look up from what I was doing. I'm making space. You don't live here anymore. Her eyes narrowed. You think this is all so simple, that you're the good guy. But you're not, Ben. You're cold. You've always been cold. I raised an eyebrow. No, I just stopped pretending. She scoffed and stormed off. And I let her. No yelling. No chasing. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something. I was no longer trying to prove anything to her. Or to anyone. I was just learning to be okay again. That weekend, Ava and I met for a walk. It was sunny but cool. Early spring, trying to remember how to be warm again. We talked about everything and nothing. At one point, she asked, "Do you ever think you'll trust again?" I didn't answer right away. "I think so," I said. "But not right now. I'm still learning how to trust myself." She nodded slowly. That's fair. There was no tension. No confusion. Just two people helping each other navigate a wreck. And for now, that was all either of us needed. It had been just over 3 weeks since the day everything imploded. 3 weeks of paperwork, silence, and slow recovery. 3 weeks of not seeing Eric, not hearing from him, not knowing if he was angry, ashamed, or still trying to convince himself it never happened. And honestly, I didn't care until the day he showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning, and I'd just gotten back from the grocery store. I had a bag of apples in one hand, my car keys in the other, and zero emotional bandwidth left for surprises. But there he was, standing on my porch like he still had the right. Eric, wearing the same old leather jacket he always did, hands in his pockets, eyes tired, but lit with something that looked dangerously close to desperation. "Ben," he said. I didn't respond, just stood there in silence. I figured we should talk. I stared at him for a beat, then nodded toward the yard. Not here. We walked a few blocks to the park nearby. I needed space. Somewhere open. Somewhere I wouldn't feel the urge to throw something. We sat down on an empty bench beneath a quiet tree. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said it. "I'm sorry." I let out a slow breath. "That's it." He looked down. "I don't know what else to say. I messed up. I know that. But I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head, more disappointed than angry. "You didn't just hurt me, Eric. You dismantled 20 years of trust. You broke something that can't be glued back together." He didn't argue, didn't defend himself. "I've been trying to make sense of it," he said, "trying to figure out how I let it happen." I turned toward him. "You didn't let it happen. You made a choice. More than once." He rubbed his hands together, nodding slowly. "I think I was just lonely. I confused comfort with something more. Rachel, she was always there. And I guess I convinced myself it wasn't as bad as it was." I gave a humorless laugh. That's one way to put it. We sat in silence again, the wind brushing past us. Finally, he spoke again. "I heard you've been helping Ava." That caught me off guard. "She's an adult," I said. "She doesn't need permission to ask for help." "I know," he replied. "She told me everything. Said you were the only one who treated her like a person." I didn't respond. I wasn't about to be thanked by him for doing the bare minimum. "She also told me she's moving out." I nodded. "That's her choice." Eric sighed. "I don't know what to do anymore. I've lost everyone." For a brief moment, I saw the version of him I once knew. The man who held his daughter's hand at her first recital. The guy who helped me move houses in the pouring rain. But it didn't last. "You made your bed, Eric," I said softly. "Now you sleep in it." He looked at me, eyes full of regret. I hope one day you'll be able to forgive me." I stood up. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. And I'm not there yet. He didn't argue, just nodded. I started to walk away, but then paused. "One more thing," I said without turning around. "You should be grateful Ava still talks to you, because that girl deserved a lot better than what either of us gave her." Then I walked home. That night, I sat out on the porch with a cup of tea. Yeah, tea. No more whiskey. No more numbing. Just air, silence, and the ache of growing into a new version of myself. My phone buzzed. A text from Ava. "He came by today. Didn't yell. Just looked tired." "Same here," I replied. "You okay?" "Getting there. I'm proud of you." I stared at those words for a while. Not "thank you." Not "I'm sorry." Just "I'm proud of you." And somehow, it meant more than anything else could have. It wasn't closure. Not yet. But it was something close. Something better. Because for the first time since this all began, I felt like I wasn't drowning anymore. I was just swimming in deeper water. and I knew how to float.